Welcome, everyone. This is womensleadershipsuccess.com. I'm so pleased today to have with me Fiona McKay. And she is an incredible woman who is one of the top speakers in the world. She's CEO and head of Value Creation Lightbulb Leadership Solutions, the female founder of the Menopause Maze, a gender acceleration strategist, career and business coach to females, leaders, and female founders, top 250 influencers in femtech. It's so long, it just keeps going on and on. And if you want to just see how great she is, just Google her. She is absolutely incredible. I'm so excited to have you here today, and I'd like you to tell a little bit about how you got involved with menopause, and then tell us what it is. And then I have a third request, and that is, why should anybody listen to this if they're not in menopause right now, or if they're male? Because we have a lot of male listeners as well as female. So welcome, Fiona.
Oh, Sabrina, thank you. And it's such a pleasure to join you and your audience here today. So the first question is, why menopause? Why menopause for me? So in the introduction that you gave, I'm a female founder and I've got a number of businesses within a group of companies. And 8 years ago now, I had to have an immediate total abdominal hysterectomy, which meant that the whole of my reproductive system had to be removed in order to basically save my life. It was a really serious operation. And although I had been prepared for the physicality of that surgery, none of the medics had prepared me for the reality of waking up into immediate surgical menopause. And when I woke up, my body had gone into wholesale shock. My brain was literally screaming out for the organs to produce the hormones that I needed to function as a human being. And I think this is a real issue and challenge for senior women, and particularly female founders. We just power on, right? Because that's what we've always done. That's what we do. We are absolute warriors. And I just thought, you know what, I need to get over the physical aspect of this surgery, and I'll just see how I go. It will be normal. Well, it wasn't normal. I was having, on average, when I came back from hospital, 160 hot flashes a day. The only way that I could literally function was to lay on the floor with the freezer door open. I was in a really bad way. And in the end, I went on hormone replacement therapy, and I only needed to have estrogen. And it did help. It massively helped, but it wasn't the silver bullet that changed everything. But that surgery changed everything in my life, and it changed everything as a female leader. And I chose not to tell anybody. My family knew, but my colleagues and my clients didn't. Because the reality is, as a female leader, leading a big business up against, the big 6 management consultancies that are our competitors around the world. If you'd have said to a CEO in an organization that you're working for, oh, I'm sorry that I've just tripped over those words, or, I might not have come across as strong in that presentation because I'm actually menopausal, you lose the gig, you don't get the work. Mm-hmm. And that is the reality of the situation. So that's why I went off on the route of researching menopause, the effect on female founders, and how we could actually put together an evidence-based method that would equip women to ensure that there was no pause to their careers as they move through menopause. And that's how I set the Menopause Maze. So the second question was, what is menopause? So menopause is the time in a woman's life when her reproductive hormones start to deplete. And it's the body's natural way of saying you're coming to the end of your childbearing years and your estrogen drops, and therefore you stop bleeding at some point and you move into the postmenopausal stage of your life. For women, for Caucasian women, the average age for perimenopause, which is when you start to notice that you are experiencing some form of symptom and your body is easing into that phase of life, around the age of 42. And the average age for entering into menopause full is 51 if you're Caucasian. If you're a woman of colour, it's 7 years earlier on average. Mm-hmm. And that's being massively overlooked in the health system. And those women are being hugely marginalised. And therefore, the third question was, what impact does it have on men? Well, for every man on this earth who knows a woman, she is going to at some point go through the menopause. No woman is exempt from it. It happens to every single female. And it's problematic for men who naturally don't tend to talk about things. Menopause is still seen as this woman's thing. It's this taboo. We don't talk about it. There's shame attached to it. It's like, oh, let's put it over there. So being educated is really important for men. Knowing how to support your loved ones is important. Knowing that there is over 60 symptoms of menopause. So it's not just hot flashes. There are a variety of physical, emotional, and psychological symptoms, but not every woman goes through them, a really vast, experience. 25% of women have no symptoms. 75% of women are symptomatic. They have some form of symptom that they manage over that period of transition. Mm-hmm. And 25%, their symptoms are so severe it can last the whole of their life through. And the natural term for menopause is around 10 years. So once you enter into it, naturally you move out of it and you can hopefully shut the door 10 years after your first symptoms arrive.
Wow. That's a lot of information and it's wonderful. I think we really need it. I was hesitant to have you on my program because of who talks about menopause, and I'm talking to women about things in business. So it's like, I really had to grapple with it myself. Do I want to do that? And I still have a concern about it. And the concern is, as you tell me these things and it becomes more open, will this increase the prejudice against women? I'm already concerned with, I experience so much of this with women who've had given birth, or they have small children, and all the things that you talk about. It affects the way you function, and it feels like, is this just one more nail or thing against women of, now if we have two candidates, we've got a man who doesn't have to deal with that like this. Now we have a woman. So yes, this is true and it's coming out in the open. How can that help us succeed as leaders and not have more prejudice heaped on us, or I don't know what? So help me with my concerns about this.
And it's a really great question, because it's one of the reasons why women don't talk about it is because they know historically if they did, they would be treated less than because of such, particularly in the workplace. But here's the figures. And for any business leader, decisions more often than not are based, not exclusively, but on numbers. Mm-hmm. By 2025, 1 billion women are going to be in the workplace of menopausal age.
1 billion.
1 billion. And that figure will only increase. Menopausal women are the fastest growing demographic in the workplace globally. So for any employer who chooses to overlook it, they've got a big challenge on their hands, because there's a huge talent crisis around the world anyway to get really talented people in jobs. So actually what we need to be able to get captains of industry to understand that this is the biggest human capital opportunity that they have ever had in their life. Go and harness it and find the people like myself who can help you do it. And that's the mindset shift. I think as individuals who are listening to this podcast, who may be thinking, well, I'm a little bit unsure about maybe saying that I am, think about what tribe can you join? Where can you find your tribe so you can start as a community to get collective voice rather than be thinking that you've got to be the lone warrior?
I like that. I think also there may be concern that if a woman says she's in menopause, that dates her or ages her like, oh, she's older now. At least in the United States, you're in England, but there's so much prejudice. Like if you're over 40 or 50, does that mean that you've passed your peak and you can't do things? Can you comment?
I think it's really important for women in the public eye, particularly in Hollywood, to come out and say, you know what, I'm dealing with it. I mean, for example, Gwyneth Paltrow, the CEO and founder of Goop, Hollywood actress, well-known Oscar-winning actress. Mm-hmm. She recently just came back off a celebrity cruise. And the week after, the Goopies were taking over the cruise. And one of the things that we were talking about is well-being and menopause. So more visible and vocal role models, absolute tick, tick, tick. Naomi Watts, she's spoken about it as well. So we need more senior women to be coming out and saying, hey, I've done it and I've still kept my career, or I'm going through it. And these are some of the things in terms of lifestyle and career that I'm looking for. But interestingly, one of the things that Gwyneth Paltrow has clearly said is I'm going to need a menopause coach and a menopause career coach to help me get through. So it's really understanding how can I access, if you want to get really fit, you go and find a personal trainer. If you want to transform your well-being, you go and see a life coach. This is no different. This is a phase in your life. What resources do you need? And who can you start to follow to give you some tools and inspiration and feeling of belonging? I think is really important.
That's really so beautiful. So what are the unique things that women should in the workplace should be paying attention to or doing?
Okay, so first and foremost, we got to think about this in two ways. So most employers, I was just looking at some stats before I came on this recording with you, Sabrina, and these were UK-based stats. And most employers in the United Kingdom don't even recognise menopause as a wellness issue. So got a problem with that before we even start. They just think it's one of those things that, a policy, a piece of paper might rectify, and then we'll pick up the fallout from that, basically, if and when. So it's a very reactive way of looking at human capital and wellness and well-being.
And no compassion, right?
Oh, well, it's just an absolute, it's a commodity transaction, if that, at best. So what I'd say to women is your career health is in your hands. If you don't craft and create the career plan that you want as you move through menopause, you are going to end up with the career results that your employer thinks that you should have on their terms and in their own time frame. Mm-hmm. So this is within your gift. And for many women moving through menopause, there are physical symptoms, there are emotional symptoms. There's just the challenge of change is really starting to think, okay, what do I want the next phase of my career to be? And it doesn't have to be the next phase is retirement. We've been given this narrative that when we get to a certain age, the next stage in our working life is that we stop working. This is the Japanese call this your second spring. I love that. The second spring of your life. So think about when you say those words, it just brings energy to you. How do you want your second spring to be? It's in your terms and on your time frame. So think about the goals you want to achieve. Is that maintaining your career? Is it maximizing it? Or is it moving out and completely and utterly transforming it and doing something new?
Mm-hmm. So, a lot of women are encouraged to take lesser jobs when menopause starts. How do you deal with that?
So the most, if you're symptomatic, it can often be really challenging to hold down your job and manage the symptoms and the challenge of menopause at the same time. And one of the benefits can be from compassionate employers who say, with the very, very best of intentions, well, how about you do 2 days a week working from home, or work from home permanently, or maybe reduce your hours, or go to compressed hours, or think about more of a more permanent part-time role. And that can be an absolute godsend to you and really make a difference to help you. But I would caveat that and say, if you are going to go down that route and that's going to be beneficial for you, only agree to it for a period of time. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to maybe work, I don't know, 40 hours a week instead of 50 hours a week, or 30 instead of 40. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to agree that with you for a period of, say, 3 months. And that gives us both the opportunity, me and you as my employer, to see how that's working out. And hopefully that will be enough of time for me to reset and really understand where I perhaps need to look at my priorities and shifting my schedule and looking at life in its whole, its holistic view. And then we can come back and revisit it, because otherwise, if you don't, there's a real opportunity to get overlooked in your career, and, you know, out of sight, out of mind. And before you know it, you're getting kicked to the curb.
Good point. So what are the things that one should do to adjust to being in menopause?
Well, in terms of your health, I mean, I'm not a medic, so I certainly can't give any medical advice here today. But what I can do is share with you some of the things that I've addressed and what helped me. So appreciate that lots of things do change, and they come often at the same time. Now, for me, everything came together, because one day I was okay and the next day I was in surgical menopause. But for most women, it will be a natural progression of things coming through and noticing change and symptom. So what I'd say is, first and foremost, you've got to look at your physical health. You've got to look at your mental health, and you've got to look at your career health. Those three things go hand in hand. And you can't have well-being across that tripartite without addressing all three, because there's an interdependency. So really thinking, okay, well, what can I do to look at diet, movement, sleep, thinking about getting hormone replacement therapy, if that's right for you. And if it isn't right for you, what alternatives you can look at from a natural perspective, because depending on your medical history, hormone replacement therapy might not be a route or an option that's right for you. But for many women, it is. For many women, even though it is, they choose to look at a more holistic and a more natural plant-based solution, and look at different opportunities and treatments that can help them. So the treatment plan, looking at how can you balance your hormones, because without getting that right first, the rest can't fit into place. That is the big, the fundamental part of the jigsaw. And then everything else will fall from there. But in terms of looking at your career health, what does good career health what does that look like for you? What will that mean? And in terms of your overall mental well-being,
before you start that, and I really want to hear it, but I'm thinking so many of the women that I've coached, just in the last week, I had a couple of women say, well, I don't have time for anything. I'm taking care of my teenagers or whatever, and I don't have time for any of any kind of self-care. And what I'm hearing you say is now is the time that you really have to make that a priority.
Well, the reality is your body and your brain will make it a priority for you, because menopause comes at the most inconvenient time in a woman's life for the very point that you've just made. If you're a career lady particularly, and you've left having a family to a little bit later in life, you've often still got the demands of a growing family, plus the demands of aging and elderly parents, and you're sandwiched right in the middle of it. And there will come a point as you come into menopause where if you don't make that time, you will crash and burn. And without being too sensational here, this is a fact. The highest rate of suicide for women is in the menopausal age. So if you don't, you are literally putting your own life, and the consequences of the choices of not prioritizing self-care will cascade and ripple through the whole of your life. Mm-hmm. And it's like they say when you get on a flight, this is the time for oxygen mask first.
So you really have to do that. And so now you were going to talk about the emotional. So go ahead, and which of course goes with this.
Yeah, and it can be a really scary time, because the person that you were before is changing into somebody else. Mm-hmm. And managing that, it's really important to talk to your peer group, to talk to your friends, to talk to your neighbours, if you're in a supportive workplace environment, talk to your colleagues, or come and join a community of like-minded senior women where you can talk to about some of the changes that you're feeling, and perhaps feeling a little fragile and a little unsure. That is so important for your mental health. Also, as well, realizing that you've got to think about sleep. And insomnia is one of the very common issues mm-hmm. of menopause. And of course, Sabrina, if you don't sleep, you can't function. If you can't function, you get anxious about not being able to function, and then you can't sleep. Mm-hmm. So it has this, catch-22 situation. I have an app on my phone called the Calm app, which I'm sure a lot of your subscribers and clients worldwide will use. And that hasn't been, it hasn't been the silver bullet, but I've found it a very centering experience, and it's quick. 10 minutes in the morning before you start your day, and give your brain, and start to think about your brain as a limb. If you broke your arm, you'd be doing everything you could to get it straight in that cast so it healed. Mm-hmm. And think about your brain as the emotional sat nav, and what can you do? Just a small amount, or when you've got a little bit more time, more indulgence, but what can you do every day to give yourself that emotional well-being? And it starts with really focusing on that as an entity rather than a side issue.
Okay, I think you said car nap. Is that correct?
Calm, C-A-L-M. Calm. Yeah. Calm.
Well, that's interesting. So that means you take a little nap. Is that?
No, it's a meditation app, and
okay.
And it has short daily meditations. It has little inspirational mind mapping exercises called daily trips. There are little 5-minute exercises you can do, and it isn't menopause specific. It's just for good mental well-being, and it's a little routine that I've got into every day. And they also do some nice sleepy bedtime stories, and they have some really great celebrities with beautiful calming voices read these, and that's really helped me sometimes just turn my overactive brain off, that because it doesn't have enough estrogen that it used to have, to just try and settle to get into some form of rhythm with sleep.
Well, send me the link, and I'll put it up on
for sure.
And I do think naps are good, and I do car naps as well as naps at home. So if I'm going to go give a speech, if I have a meeting with a business that I'm working with, I might set my timer for 10 minutes and just lean my head back and shut my eyes And I find little, or what in the United States you call cat naps, just little tiny naps where I'm not processing things, trying to figure out what to do, but I'm just getting back to myself. I find that really helpful.
And that's why for a lot of women who elect to work from home a little bit more, if you're feeling a little dozy in the afternoon and you think, oh gosh, I could just really benefit from a 10-minute snooze and a recharge, there's the opportunity to take it. You know, you're not having to go into the boardroom and trying to find some plastic to lay on the boardroom table to get a 10-minute recharge. So, you know, I would definitely endorse that. Absolutely. Grab the opportunity to recharge whenever you can.
Right. And a lot of big businesses have nursing rooms with beds in them that you can go take a 10-minute nap in.
Absolutely. And also as well, you know, canteens and shared workspaces and breakout zones, you know, a lot of them are comfortable and inclusive places. And, you know, if you are working in an organization which is doing the work to make it okay to talk about menopause, if you see one of your colleagues having a little 10 minutes and you know it's a menopause nap, great, go for it. What's the difference between that and a co-colleague, you know, going out and having a stroll or taking some time for themselves? So yeah, definitely, for sure.
Absolutely. So you say that women need to have a career plan in menopause, and you kind of alluded to that earlier, but what exactly do you mean? You mean like a formal career plan?
I think you really benefit from a formal career plan. I really do. And there are 3 quick key questions that you have to be able to answer within that career plan. And what I'd say is, if you are at the point where you're feeling in hormonal deficit and you're still challenged with getting your hormone levels balanced, you can really fall out with your career. You can really fall out with it and think, I hate this job. I hate what I'm doing. I can't bear it. I don't want to go into work every day. Everything just seems negative. And before you make that devastating decision of moving away from something, you've got to be really clear. Is this because I'm feeling hormonally challenged, or actually is this time of hormonal change just fast-tracked what I've always felt and it's just brought it to the forefront? So it's a decision which I knew in my subconscious that I needed to make, but I chose not to do it. Mm-hmm. So that's the first part of the career plan. And then the second part is the formalization of it. So where do I want to be in the next 10 years as I move through menopause? Because there are going to be changes that's going to happen to me physically and emotionally. And that means that I'm going to potentially move through and look at my life in a different way. Mm-hmm. So with that, what impact is that going to have across the other parts of my life? Will that mean I will earn more? Perhaps will I go for a different role or a different career that perhaps doesn't have the same income that I have right now, but I'm going to get more time back? And these are the things that we need to plot and plan, because otherwise, if you don't, you're going to end up with what you get rather than what you want.
Mm-hmm. And this is, I think, why it's really good if you have a coach, or like you have a group that you work with. I'm thinking so many women, they really don't have anyone they can talk through this whole process.
Absolutely. And that's why we set up the No Pause program. So the No Pause program is an online program run by career coaches. I do one twice a year, and that's the opportunity to go through that career plan and actually with your peer group, get that plan in place, which is phenomenal. It's 6 weeks and it gives you absolutely the tools that you need to really understand what is going to take to get the optimum career health for you. And then we have a vibrant community as well in the Menopause Maze. And that means that you can talk to other women, access experts, and really get the coaching that you need at the time of menopause that you're at, that makes the most difference for you.
Okay, so we'll put that link up on the show notes also.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you.
People can access that. You state that menopause is a perfect time to become a female founder. Now tell me about that.
Well, that seems quite contradictory, doesn't it? Because you think, oh my goodness, I'm going through physical and emotional and mental changes. And your recommendation, Fiona, is to just pile another change on top of me and say, go and start a business. Well, actually, let's think about this and pull this apart. So when you get to your 40s and 50s, if you've been really successful in your career, you're often in a leadership role. You're at the top of your game. And therefore, you have an amazing network, a network that you have contributed to the whole of your life through. And you look around and think, you know what? I've known, especially if you're in a really successful organization currently, and you look around and you think there are so many opportunities to bring about different products or services to market. And I think this would be the great time. But there may be so many corporate layers and just politics and claptrap that you just feel as though you can't deal with anymore. Mm-hmm. And the research has shown women in their 40s, it's the time of entrepreneurial success for that very reason. You're networked, you're well experienced, you are able to really galvanize and understand change, you're creative, and if not now, when? So there's you look forward and think, okay, well, I've got the next 20 years. I could really motor here and bring something amazing to market, whether it's products, services, opportunities, selling knowledge, whatever it may be. And therefore, I think it's the most amazing time to think, well, right, okay, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to really back myself. Why not? And there are some really successful women in their 40s and 50s who've gone on to do great things.
That's wonderful. I want to go back to the symptoms, and I was going to look this up and I didn't have time to do it, but the woman prime minister, is it Norwegian? She's, do you know the name of this show?
I do, but I can't remember how bad is that.
Okay. But she's brilliant. She's doing this great job, and she has what I call power surges. All of a sudden, she'll just be maroon color, and she's hot. And that's to me, that's a big one. You're in a meeting, you're giving a speech, you're doing something, and all of a sudden you have a hot flash or a power surge. What do you suggest doing?
I suggest, well, organizations would do well to start thinking about investing in fans and better temperature control across organizations. But if you work from home or you work remotely, that's within your own control. But what I'd say is we need to just start normalizing it and saying, hey, particularly, I mean, for me, one of the big symptoms was I was tripping over my words and I just couldn't remember people's names. It's to just say, hey, can't remember your name, not personal, it's brain fog, it's menopause. It's okay, because it happens. That's what happens. It's no different to a woman who has a baby and said, oh, I'm sorry, I've just got to nip off because I'm going to express some milk for my child. It's a natural part of what happens to you.
Boy, what a difference that would make if everyone did that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, tripping over my words, it's just brain fog. Or actually, can we open those windows? I'm having one of my power surges. And you know what? We need more women to be able to say to men, when we go in meetings, my temperature is going to go up and down in here. So just be mindful of that. We can't be having the heating on absolutely full blast because I'm going to have to go and put my head out of the window. And they need to, you know what? Most men that I've come across, if you say that to them, will be absolutely, you just tell us what you need. I really do think that most men want to be as supportive as they can be. They're just unsure how to do it.
Right. And so much better than waiting till you're miserable and the heat's too high and you pass out or you have to leave the meeting. That's such a good idea. And also maybe asking for the fan. If you're going to be giving a talk, saying, I'll need a fan here. I
need a fan here. I'm going to need some water. it would be good to look at the temperature and control across especially if you're giving a speech maybe in an auditorium where there's a lot of people. So with that, you're going to get natural increased body heat, how you can regulate, and also start to think about the clothes that you wear as well. Think about the clothing that you wear that is going to give you confidence, but give you confidence to physically breathe as well. So you're not having to keep taking a jacket off. So it may be that a dress and maybe a shawl or a scarf may be much, much better for you. Start to think about the practicalities of how you can dress to give you the freedom and the flexibility to not have to just keep peeling off layers, but because what I found was I would be boiling and then freezing cold 5 minutes later. So having that opportunity to maybe just have a little cardigan or a shawl that you can just put around in a meeting without bringing huge amount of attention to yourself. It's a simple but more comfortable step.
When we started, I complimented you on the lovely blouse that you have on, and you started to say something to me about menopause in your blouse. So can you tell me that story?
I think one of the things that we really lose through menopause is the sparkle over our own identity. And we lose the sparkle over our self-care. It just goes right down to the bottom of the priority list. And one of the things that I'd really recommend is is just introducing a little bit of sparkle and a little bit of colour into your day. That might be a little dash of red lipstick. It might be, I've got a little sparkly top on here. And would I have worn this 10 years ago for a recording on a podcast? Absolutely not. I wouldn't have dared do it. But you know what? I think it lifts my colour a bit. It's not sequined. It's just got a little bit of shimmer in it. And it makes me feel today a little more special about joining you and joining your listeners and subscribers. So wear it, a little bit of colour around your face, a little bit of sparkle. What can you do to give you just that little sprinkle that might be the difference, that just lifts the difference of how you feel?
I love it. And the other thing I think is when we do that type of thing, we're also modeling for other people. And it could be other women in menopause, but it could be a man that has some physical disability or doesn't feel well. And think about COVID. So many people feel like they can't say anything, but the whole world is experiencing it. It's okay to say you have some brain fog or there's something going on.
Absolutely. And high performing women tend to not share symptoms because they're just used to powering through. We are powerhouses. And actually, what I'd say is that can end up being your worst Achilles heel. You've got to really think about that as you come into menopause. That approach gets you to a certain point, but it can really untrip you in menopause. So even if you don't want to publicly share it in the workplace, and it's your choice of whether you disclose that, whether you're menopausal or not, but having a support system around you and sharing it with your tribe is critical.
Beautiful. So what are the positives of menopause?
Well, for me,
you've kind of said it, but I really want you to.
I think for me, there's just this switch that went off in my brain that meant I just can't listen to just corporate BS anymore. It's just you just don't have to listen to it. And that's not about being confrontational or putting your hand in someone's face and saying, I can't listen to that anymore. You just choose to extricate yourself from scenarios that just do not bring you any joy anymore. So with that, you're much more, I feel, much more intentional about where you spend your time and who you spend it with, which means you get much more control back in your own life. And that's only a good thing. I think the major thing about menopause as well is one of the things that I've really enjoyed is finding out about women who have been much more authentic and they've been really honest about who they actually are and getting deeper, much more meaningful conversations with peer-to-peer of your peers. and women who you've really respected across the whole of your career landscape. And also as well, just backing yourself. All of that imposter syndrome that is real. Imposter syndrome is a real thing and it really affects women. Is to think, I've come this far and I deserve my seat at this table. And you get a greater sense of understanding of what that means. And also, for me, a greater respect for my body. My body has done amazing things for me. It's done amazing things. And it's so resilient, and you just become more of who you are meant to be, and you become much more comfortable with that. And those for me are really strong positive takeaways.
Well, and as a post-menopausal woman, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
So it will not last forever.
Yeah.
And you'll be beyond that. And it keeps getting better. It just keeps getting better.
It's a period of time, right? It's a transition. A transition is a moment in time.
Yes. So I put down in our questions, what's a FEMAC lady? And do you feel comfortable telling us about that? Would that be okay to end the show with here?
Yeah, I mean, FEMAC ladies are strong ladies, aren't they? They are full of courage, aspiration, and power. And, you know, there are many of those who I really respect and admire. And, you know, my goodness, if there was ever a FEMAC lady, it's you, Sabrina. So, you know,
Nice.
As a role model, wow, if anyone wants to know the definition of it, look you up.
Oh, thank you. I was thinking about Christine Lagarde. She's somebody I really admire. Do you have other women that you feel are really good role models for all of us?
I think there are some amazing women who are phenomenal role models. Jacinda Ardern, who is the Prime Minister of New Zealand. I really respect her. I think, you know, you can't get away from the fact that she's only young, but I really respect Greta Thunberg for being true to herself. Mm-hmm. Whether you agree with the climate change agenda or whether you don't, I think to have that power and purpose and self-belief and is really, really inspiring. I really respect and admire a female founder called Trinny Woodall. I don't know if you got in back in the 90s, her and her best friend Susanna Constantine did a big show about what not to wear, and they were stylists. And at 54, she launched a skincare and cosmetics brand, which has just gone from strength to strength. She's over actually in the States at the moment. She has she's got a concession in Saks Fifth Avenue. She's going from strength to strength. And a friend of mine who I really admire, she was a PhD research food scientist, and she had really, really bad symptoms of menopause. And she wasn't in a supportive environment, and she started her own business, Sabor, and she's Spanish, and has produced a product called Paella in a bottle, and she's gone on to have it stocked in some of the major stores around the world. She's on Amazon. She's won numerous cooking programs in media, and these are women that are close to me and who I really admire.
Beautiful. Well, to end up the show, what's one last piece of advice you want to leave women with?
What I'd say is your menopause will come to all of us. Don't fear it, but start to plan for it and start to think about the positives that can come out of this, and getting a career plan on your terms and in your own time frame to ensure that there's no pause to your career as you move through menopause.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Fiona. Really appreciate you being on the show.
Oh, thank you. It's been a joy.